Do you buy? Do you rent? Do you invest? These are all the questions we want to know. This week on Indigo Living's On the Couch series, we can't wait to explore the world of real estate and how to get in it, take advantage, and of course, keep up with this ever fast-paced industry. This week, we speak to Lyndsey Redstone. She is from PH Real Estate. She is an expert on the market, and as a female broker, she has some tips and tricks that she wants to share with you. Please welcome Lyndsey Redstone. Hello.
Hi, Rose. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here. I feel like we're always talking about fashion and creatives and interiors when really you can't have all of that unless you have a home.
Very true. Yeah.
Very true. So we thought we'd hit the basics and talk about real estate because the numbers are, well, they're impressive. They are growing at a rapid speed, and Dubai is the top of the conversation for everyone around the world.
Yeah, so we've come out of the lockdown period in Dubai kicking and screaming and bringing a lot of new investors and people wanting to change up their homes who are already here.
And what have you seen as the pattern? Have you seen a lot of people moving into UAE, or has it been just investments?
So we've found a lot of new families relocating here, as well as a lot of people deciding to upgrade in terms of their size, amenities of their house. I think spending so much more time at home, everyone's decided that it's more important to have a workspace at home or a garden or a larger terrace. So we've seen a lot of people upgrading as well, which is quite surprising given everything that was going on globally over the past 18 months.
And in Dubai, how do you look for the best area to invest? Because it is constantly evolving. There are so many new areas opening up. What should people look for when they're going to make a very big, large investment like buying a home?
So I think it depends quite a lot on individual circumstances, whether people are looking for a family home. If so, you consider which are the closest schools, the transport access for work, things like this. If it's a pure investment, obviously you're looking at the rental yields and what you would be likely to achieve on a ROI type of thing as well.
So the return on the investment for someone who is investing, what is a good number to look for?
So up until recently, we would have been looking in Dubai at around 8% as a return on investment for a net yield. However, of course, the prices for purchasing have gone up in the last 12 months, and the rental prices are usually and typically 6 to 8 months behind. So at the moment, the net yields are slightly lower. We're looking at 4 to 5%, which is still an increase in comparison to other major cities like London, where you'd be looking at 2 to 3%. So at the moment, we're at around 4 to 5%.
So let's explore the idea of an investment, because I think people want to park their money somewhere safe, have something physical to hold on to where they can literally see that they own an apartment or a home.
Yeah.
What are the hidden costs of being a homeowner or an investment?
Okay, so when you purchase for property, you do have costs involved, which is nice to know from the outset when you're doing your finances. So any purchase is subject to a land department transaction fee, which is almost like a stamp duty in the UK, which is 4% of the purchase price. This goes to the government. On top of that, you have an administration charge known as the trustee fee, which is $4,200 on every purchase. In Dubai,
that's good to know. I mean, it's good because I think no one really talks about these hidden fees. So we're already at 2 fees already in.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many buyers who have been looking around haven't been told by a broker what the fees are to expect, because it's important when you're doing your calculations to know that not only do you need your down payment if you're purchasing with a mortgage, but also your fees as well. So in addition to that, you do have an agency fee. In Dubai, the buyer pays for brokerage fee, which is typically 2% plus VAT if you're buying a secondary market property. If you're buying from a developer with your agent helping you, at that point you don't have any transaction fees for purchasing, and a lot of the developers are doing reductions in the land department fee as well.
That's good to know. So you should really ask. Okay, so you should ask.
Yes. And then if you're buying with a mortgage, you'll also have a mortgage registration fee, which is 0.25% of the loan amount.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you recommend for people to go for the mortgage route?
So the interest rates in Dubai are typically quite low, and the banks are quite flexible in terms of their lending criteria. So I think that if you're able to purchase rather than rent, but you don't have a full amount to purchase in cash, yes, a mortgage can be a very attractive option. I'd say probably around 60% of my buyers are mortgage buyers and 40% are buying outright in cash.
And then once you own this property, right? And whether you want to rent it out or even stay, especially in apartment buildings, which are kind of the easiest where you can lock and go, what are the hidden costs of maintaining an apartment?
So each developer or development has an annual service charge. So for example, on the Palm for a 2-bedroom apartment, you're looking anywhere between 22 and 24,000 dirhams per year.
Wow.
For your service charge.
And that is the responsibility of
the owner or the landlord.
Yeah.
In addition, if some developments have a beach club, you can pay extra for the beach club on top of your service charges. And then villas, they do go down quite substantially. So like Emirates Living, which is a very popular community, the service charges are at between 1.9 and 2.1 dirhams per square foot.
Oh, wow. So I feel like these are all the topics that people need to know because they just want to financially plan their investment and see if it's actually worth investing in a way to rent it or to actually move in.
Yeah, I think all of the costs are something that needs to be considered strongly when you're purchasing. And I think having someone who is patient and can explain what's needed, what your costs are going to be ongoing, so that you're fully aware before you enter into something that you may or may not be able to achieve. So it's an expensive purchase and it's a big decision finding a house. So you need someone who's going to explain everything to you. Like for me, I do a spreadsheet for a client. So they'll have a breakdown exactly of what everything's going to cost so that they know in black and white and make sure it's a feasible option for them.
In a city like Dubai or a place like the UAE where there's developments, building constantly, how do you find a broker? How do you find one that you trust and who's going to give you the best advice?
So unfortunately, Dubai brokers do have a little bit of a bad rap because they work on commission only. They're often very pushy and trying to make people make decisions quickly. Your initial contact with a broker is usually through one of the portals or by recommendation. So Property Finder or Bayou, and you phone or WhatsApp the agent, as it's now the fashion, and you begin your connections. I think just like with anything, you'll work out whether you get along and you feel like that agent is going to work in your best interest quite quickly. But a lot of business is done through referrals now in Dubai.
Yeah, I guess it's
most of mine now is through referrals, someone who's bought or sold through me before, and they're happy with the service and they're introduced their friends, and then it moves forwards from that.
And here in a city which is so new and there's so many developments literally popping up all the time, would you recommend buying off plan?
So the difference between buying off plan versus ready is off plan, you're tying up your finances in today's market, which means that you've got installments going all the way to completion. Dubai is a very transient market and it has its ups and downs. So you've got negatives on that front. However, you usually get a slightly lower price if you buy it off plan. The only downside if you're an investor is if you're an investor and wanting to take something off plan, you're not going to have any ROI on your investment up until the point it's ready. So it really depends what you're looking for in terms of your acquisition. I think that a lot of people, especially if you're looking for a home, you want to be able to see, feel, touch, and work out what it is that you actually like. So off-plan doesn't always work. But some of the developers have started doing show homes, which they furnish and stage nicely, ready for people to look around. So at least you have an idea of what you're buying, because sometimes a floor plan doesn't actually give you a clear idea of what it is that you're getting. Yeah.
And then also you have the ability to almost customize it a little bit before it's getting built in some ways.
It depends on developer to developer. So if you're buying something through Emaar, it's very much, you get your cookie cutter of the version, and then once it's finished, you can make your customizations. There were some properties recently released by District 1 at Mohammed bin Rashid City, which were shell and core. So you could buy them with the outsides finished and do your fit out totally yourself.
Oh, wow.
And I think DMAC have just launched a project where you can literally sit there with the architects and design your own house. Like
That's amazing.
Almost, yeah. So all of these factors do kind of influence your decision as to ready or off plan. For me, I like ready because I like to be able to see it first.
Yeah,
and work out what I actually like.
You know what you're getting. So Dubai is a hot topic everywhere around the globe. It is a place for luxury, families, home, water, sports. You can live by the beach. What are the numbers right now that people are looking at that have invested in the UAE?
So in terms of transactional values, yesterday, for example, there was 1.7 billion dirhams of new home sales registered at the land department.
It's amazing.
And then
compared to last year,
where we'd just come out of our lockdown here, and we had on it, if we look at it the exact same day, the 7th of June last year, it was 131 million.
Wow.
So it means we've had 15 times more transactions on the same day of the year if we compare it to last year. And what's really been affected is the luxury end of the market. So the prices at the higher end have gone up between 30 and 40% since last year, in some cases even more. So it's really a boom, and there's not enough properties for people to find at the moment, which is what's forcing the prices to go up even further at the moment, because it's all about supply and demand for ready turnkey properties for people to move in.
That's amazing. No, I think we've been so lucky. The leadership has made it so easy for people to kind of adapt to what's happening in the world and still keep the comforts, making sure the kids are in school, making sure life is still going on. And we're getting, I guess, investments for the city as well.
I think also if you compare it to other countries in the world, like if we compare Dubai to Hong Kong, for example, the average price per square foot for an apartment in Hong Kong is $2,000 per square foot. And then if we look at super prime here, so Palm, we're at $560 per square foot. And that's with the increased prices. So even though the prices have increased, we're still considerably cheaper than a lot of other major cities in the world, and the facilities that we've got and the lifestyle that we've got is very different from a lot of other places as well.
That's exciting. So now, Dubai is the hot place. We have young professionals moving in, and a lot of them want just an apartment. They want to rent, they want to test out the market, they're new to the city. What are the do's and don'ts for people that are renting? Because I think that is, people don't know what to ask a landlord, what their rights are.
So important things to consider when you're renting the property is, for me, I'd ask a little bit about the owner of the property, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a relationship with them for the next 12 months onwards. And you want to know whether they're going to be contactable if there's any maintenance issues. Like, I'm super lucky. If anything goes wrong, my owner has a team there to get it sorted straight away. So I'd ask questions about the owner's maintenance issues. In terms of the apartment itself, you look at the facilities of the building. I would look at the extra costs involved. So some buildings have extra costs for air conditioning, like Empower, which you have on the Palm, whereas some of the buildings within EMAR, it's included within the rent. So you know what the fixed prices are. I'd ask my broker what the expected DEWA bills would be. And then in terms of price, I'd look at what else is on the market to make sure I'm paying the fair price and compared to other properties. How many check payments that the owner would consider. Previously in Dubai, it was more 1 or 2. Now the owners seem to be a bit more flexible and consider 3 or 4 payments per year. So you've got that flexibility as well. And then, especially with everything going on, I'd always want to have an option for a notice period within my contract in case anything happened with me work-wise or anything like that. So I wasn't stuck in a position where I wouldn't be able to meet my obligations. So maybe a 2-month notice or 2-month penalty should I need to move out of the property sooner.
And as a tenant, you should be able to ask, right? You should always ask these things. Don't assume.
You should, and you should be able to have a broker who will answer the questions for you and will attend the appointments with you and show you around the buildings and give you the pros and cons. If the apartment hasn't been painted, ensure that the owner has it painted before you move in and it's clean and it's ready for you to go. Like, I had a client last week and he took a brand new villa. So I went and attended the snagging appointment with his wife to make sure that even if there was something she hadn't seen, that it was done to their level of expectations before taking the handover, and then went back and checked the work as it was being done and made sure everything was perfect for him to move into his new home. But unfortunately, some people just don't give you the service. And at the end of the day, you're paying a commission. So you want to have the service and the help from the agent that you're paying for. So you should be able to ask for things and make sure that you are happy with the service that you're getting.
And with the tenant landlord, it's the tenant that pays for the broker.
Yes, the tenant. So in Dubai, the tenant pays for the brokerage fees. If the owner decides to have the property managed by the real estate brokerage, then they would have a fee. But other than that, it's the tenant who's paying the agency fees.
And for someone who's looking on these great sites like a Property Finder, you see an apartment you like and there's a different agent managing that property. Do you deal with your broker, or do you have to deal with the person who's listed on that website?
So the beauty of Dubai is agents can work with other agents. So for example, if you were working with me and we've been out and looked at 15, 20 places together, and then you saw one come up with another broker who you hadn't worked with, but you thought it looked perfect, you could send your designated broker that advert, and I could work with the other agent to show you the property. So you're not explaining your requirements again, you know you've got someone looking after your interests. Yeah, so you are able to do that as well. If you hadn't met me and you hadn't been looking with me, then you'd phone the agent directly. But if you were working with someone, yes, you can very much send them the links of things that you're interested in as well, and they can do it. For a buyer or a tenant, it's got no effect on your costs. It's just the agents, they split the commission. So we would go 50-50 on the commission.
Brilliant. And finally, should you buy, should you rent, should you invest? That is the question, because right now it's just this crazy boom. It's so exciting for the city, but if you're living here, is this a good time to buy? I think it's been such a rental culture.
I think it depends on quite a lot of factors. If you've got the affordability in terms of your deposit, and you're planning on being in Dubai for the mid to long term, I would definitely suggest purchasing rather than renting. If you're renting, you're paying off someone else's mortgage at the end of the day, and you won't have any assets. Whereas if you purchase, you're paying off your own mortgage. The costs are actually usually a little bit cheaper than rentals because of the lower interest rates. And it means that you're able to have a tangible asset at the end of the day. And then going back to what I said before about price per square foot, I still think there's a lot of room for growth in the Dubai market. Mm-hmm. It has come up very quickly, but the prices we were at pre-pandemic were almost lower than it would cost to build a property.
Wow.
So the prices were at such a low stage, even though they've come up, they're nowhere near the peak that we were at before. So I still think there's a bit of room for growth. And when you get to customize your own home, furnish it nicely, do everything that you want to do to a property. Like for me, I'm renting my apartment, but I'm in the process of buying one. And I hate my kitchen. So if I owned it, I'd be wanting to redo the kitchen. And you don't want to do it when you're renting a property.
And as a homeowner, let's flip it. If you want to sell a property, how do you make your home sellable? How do you present it in the best way?
So unfortunately in Dubai, a lot of people don't put the time and effort into what they should to selling their property. For me, I think that we should be adopting more of the American style of staging the properties, having it furnished nicely, so when people are looking around, it feels like a home. So I think that's something that could really start taking off in Dubai and allowing people to maximize their selling price by making the home feel like a home rather than just a empty property, whether it's an apartment or a 7-bedroom house. Nothing looks great when it's empty, no matter how nice it is. Yeah. So I think if we could start doing more staging and furnishing of the properties and dressing them ready to sell, I think that would really, really help clients find their perfect home, really.
And I believe Indigo Living offers the service where we work with real estate agents to stage homes. Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people, I mean, for me, I know what I like when it comes to interiors. I just wouldn't know how to do it myself. So I could look at something and be like, oh, this is beautiful. But if I went to an empty space, I wouldn't even know where to start with proportions and lighting and blinds and furniture and accessories, and to really kind of create that environment.
But I think even homes which are lived in, if they're a bit cluttered or too individual in terms of style, even they could have some help with staging, because if you had like a nice neutral furniture within the house, it makes it look brighter, airier, and it just makes it a lot more of a sellable product. Some houses I go to have so much furniture and you can barely walk around. So some people just need a bit of advice on getting the home ready to sell. So staging is fantastic.
That's a great idea. And I think it's a very common practice in the US and in North America, but here I think everyone should do it, because you can literally increase the value of your home.
Yeah, so we recently sold a beautiful villa on Pearl Jumeirah, and the owner was living there, but it was like a show home. And everyone who walked in was interested to take it just how it is. So even if the property is staged, the client could come in and say, actually, I'd like to take all the furniture and take it just how it is. And then it's a turnkey solution for the client as well.
That's brilliant. Yeah. So if we want to contact you for any questions, PH Real Estate is where it's going to go. And you can definitely book you to explore this incredible market, whether you are renting, want to do an investment, or of course, just kind of buying a home.
Or if you just want advice. I'm happy to just speak to people if they want advice as well.
Well, I'm so glad. And finally, let me ask you, how did you get into real estate?
My family are actually in real
Are
estate,
they?
so
Okay,
it was kind of
good.
in my blood. So they used to have a real estate company in London.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was kind of the natural job progression for me.
No, I love that. And I think if you are a broker, you have to be people friendly. You have to know your numbers and have to know kind of the pulse on the market.
I think you have to enjoy your job.
Yes, and that too, of course. But you know, on this show, we have a saying and a motto for everyone who comes on. It's called Living Beautifully, and that's what Indigo Living is all about. So what does living beautifully mean to you?
So for me, it's about family, friends, and enjoying your life. I've got 2 little dogs who make my life very beautiful. Unfortunately, not seeing everyone as much as I would like to at the moment with the travel restrictions. But I think it's very important to make yourself happy. And if you're not happy, you need to change something to make yourself happy.
Love that. And we love your dogs. Thank you so much for joining us.
And thanks for having me.
And thank you for all that great advice. It is so important, I think, as people plan their personal investments and portfolios going forward. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us this week on Indigo Living's On the Couch series. As you know, we've given up the couch due to COVID, but we do have a fancy coffee table, new chairs, and of course, we have incredible women joining us each week, sharing all their insightful knowledge in their industry. So make sure you join us, follow our podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and we are everywhere. Like, follow, and of course, comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you next week. Bye.